Imagine a country where families vanished overnight, where schools and hospitals were emptied, and entire cities fell silent, where millions were executed, not for crimes, but simply for who they were. This was Cambodia under Pol Pot, a nightmare that became known as the Killing Fields. Between 1975 and 1979, nearly 2 million Cambodians, almost a quarter of the population, perished through starvation, forced labor, disease, and mass executions. But how did a vibrant nation descend into such horror? To understand, we must look at the rise of Pol Pot and the ideology that fueled this reign of terror. Pol Pot, born Salazar in 1925, was a man shaped by a turbulent Cambodia. He studied in France, joined communist movements, and returned with a radical vision to transform Cambodia into a purely agrarian society. Cities were corrupt, intellectuals were dangerous, anyone connected to the old government of foreign influence was a threat. In April 1975, the Khmer Rouge captured Phnom Penh. Overnight, life as a Cambodians knew it was obliterated. Families were forced from their homes, money was abolished, schools closed, and religion suppressed. A nation of 7 million became prisoners in their own land. Pol Pot's regime sought to remake Cambodia by erasing the past. Intellectuals, professionals, and even anyone wearing glasses were deemed dangerous. People disappeared overnight. Cities became ghost towns, and the countryside, the so-called killing fields, became a land of death. One of the most infamous sites was Tuol Sleng, also known as S21, a former high school converted into a torture prison. Prisoners were forced to write confessions about crimes they never committed. Van Nat, an artist imprisoned at S21, survived because his artistic skills were useful to the regime. He witnessed the systematic torture and murder of thousands, including children and entire families. He painted portraits of Pol Pot while surrounded by death, a silent witness to horror. Another survivor, Chum May, endured 12 hours of torture daily and starvation for months. He survived only because he knew enough about mechanics to repair Khmer Rouge weapons. He later recounted how entire rooms of prisoners were beaten and executed in front of one another, with screams echoing day and night. Fear was constant, inescapable, and absolute. Didi Tran, a photojournalist who later helped expose the genocide to the world, witnessed his own family executed. He lived as a laborer under constant threat, watching countless deaths around him. Villages were marched into the countryside, families separated, children forced to watch parents die, leaving survivors haunted for life. These real stories show horror in human terms. Limbs were broken, families torn apart, children imprisoned and executed. Every day brought new death. Every field, every forest, every abandoned school became a grave. The killing fields were not just a place. They were the embodiment of terror itself. Beyond physical abuse, psychological terror was relentless. People were forced to distrust one another. Families were torn apart. Even looking at a neighbor could be dangerous. Life and death became mere numbers. and survival depended on fear, obedience, and luck. The climax of the genocide was not a single battle. It was the relentless, unending operation that consumed the nation. Millions disappeared. Cambodia's rich culture, its history, its soul were nearly erased. Yet, amidst the horror, the courage of survivors like Vanna, Chumek, and Dit Pran would one day reveal the truth to the world. By 1978, the Khmer Rouge regime was weakening. Its brutal policies had left Cambodia economically devastated, the population traumatized, and even its own soldiers disillusioned. Pol Pot's leadership, once feared, was increasingly challenged from within. The regime's paranoia had turned inward, with officials and commanders purged in waves of suspicion and violence. In December 1978, Vietnam launched a full-scale invasion of Cambodia, motivated in part by repeated border attacks and the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding next door. Within weeks, the Vietnamese army advanced rapidly, capturing key cities and forcing the Khmer Rouge into retreat. Phnom Penh fell on January 7, 1979, ending Pol Pot's reign of terror. The Khmer Rouge fled to remote border areas, continuing prodigious guerrilla warfare for years. But their grip on power was broken. Cambodia emerged from this nightmare, but the scars were everywhere. Nearly 2 million lives lost, families destroyed, and the nation's cultural and social fabric in ruins. Even after his removal from power, Pol Pot remained a symbol of terror. He lived in hiding, protected by loyalists, until his death in 1998. Yet, the world remembered him not as a fallen dictator, but as the architect of one of the 20th century's most devastating genocide. His fall did not undo the suffering, but it marked the beginning of Cambodia's slow, painful journey toward recovery and remembrance. Today, Cambodia honors those who were lost. Memorials and museums preserve the memory of the 2 million victims, ensuring the world never forgets the horror of the killing fields. The killing fields are more than history. They are a warning. They remind us of the fragility of humanity and the terrifying consequences of unchecked power. And they remind us that remembrance is the first step in preventing history from repeating itself. Cambodia has been rebuilt, yet the scars remain. The voices of the lost still echo through the land. We must remember the killing fields, not as a distinct tragedy, but as a lesson for all humanity. Never forget